Hello there, Fierce Factor. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm, and thank you for joining me today for episode 47, Eliminate Fire Drills in Your Business with this strategy. This week, I had what I would call an intervention training with my academy. Basically, many of our members are dealing with unexpected personnel issues, patient issues, shuffling of staff, you name it. And I realize COVID has really changed a lot of things for many people. And I think that we're in this really interesting stage, a stage of transition, I should say. I've sort of been telling my friends, like, look, sports are starting back up, expectations are picking up, I'm back traveling again, business is getting busier, but the COVID landscape in terms of resources and support and structure and systems have not caught up with the demands. And I am seeing this not just in my life, but in the life of my friends, my clients, my family. And here's the reality. Our clients who are powerhouse MDs and business leaders, they just don't have the time, nor should they take on even more tasks or more responsibilities in their business. And so in this episode, I'm sharing with you a training that I did. We'll call it intervention, but really just an absolute focused mindset training on the power of focus. Leaning into key activities that powerfully drive impact in our business and then flat out eliminating the rest. And when you do that, the result will be a more deliberate, well-rested, and strategic thinking CEO. And I mean less headaches, less rushing, less over-delivering, and less overpaying. I thought this would be an impactful training to share with you podcast listeners who might be experiencing the fire drill effect in your own business. So, hey, tune in to learn about how to apply ruthless focus in your business to eliminate stress and tap into a greater level of emotional and financial wealth. Hi there, welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go. And I want to talk to you about really living by this philosophy of value-driven activities only, okay? Because truly, if you look at the things that you do, 80% of them are not actually moving the needle in your business. They're keeping you busy. They may be slowing you down. And so we should know, what are the top 3 priorities in your business? So when I ask you, what are you focusing on? Have an answer be, you should know these are 3 things I'm focusing on and not moving on to anything else until I accomplish these 3 things, right? 3 things that you do that personally drive the most value. Right? What do you value personally? What makes you happy? What fuels you? Because if you don't focus there and you're not putting investment behind what makes you feel good, you're going to fall out of love with your business and you're going to feel restricted by your business and resentful of it. Okay. And then what 3 things the company should be doing as a whole to drive the most value? And then finally, what 3 things should each individual team member do that drives the most value? So if you're thinking about this, if you can think of this 2 to 3 things, like what are the main things that are producing impact for us, then the rest, forget about it. And I know this sounds very difficult, and many of you are like, okay, Haley, but I'm different. I have this many things, or this is important, or I have to cover up with that. Well, I want to tell you that when you let go of this, living by this Pareto principle will create tremendous freedom for you in your life. Okay, so let's talk about, instead of managing time, how can you adopt this 80-20 rule to focus on activities that actually matter? So it was fascinating for me looking at this Pareto principle. So 20% of criminals commit 80% of crimes. 20% of drivers cause 80% of all traffic accidents. 80% of pollution originates from 20% of factories. 20% of companies represent 80% of sales, and 20% employees, think about this, are responsible for 80% of results. So let's get super practical here. When you look at your schedule, how much unscheduled time do you have in your day? Unscheduled. Okay. So when you think of it, like if your answer is, Kaylee, I literally have zero unscheduled time. And I mean like appointments scheduled where you have to show up and you are like committed to that time slot, right? Then I would ask, are you running your business or is your business running you? I want you guys to really get clear on the 2 to 3 things that can only be done by you as a leader. What are those 2 to 3 things? Outside of these 2 to 3 inputs, there's so much space for us to get distracted that will actively take you away from growing your company or reinvesting open time into managing your own life or the money that you're making, right? Have you thought about that, right? As we advance, the more money we make. I mean, remember, the world's richest people are investors. They invest in assets, not just work to generate revenue. So are you giving yourself the time to really think about where you're investing that money and how you're actually going to catapult wealth for yourself and for your business? So as I was thinking for you guys, right? So for our clients, like what are the most important value-driven activities in general for most of our clients? Okay. And so I came up with what I think my list for you would be, but I want you guys obviously to come up with your own. Number 1, thinking and planning, right? I think we're missing a lot of that. Thinking and planning, taking the time to be mindful and thoughtful about how they want to grow their business, who they want to become in the process, who they want to work with, what they'll stand for, how they'll plan for the long term, and then strategically make moves to positively impact and get them closer to that goal. I can tell you from my experience that every decision that has been rushed from me personally has ultimately created some sort of a boomerang of impact that resulted in taking additional time to clean up, right? Like I had to put fires out or clean up messes or, in some cases start over completely. And decisions that I waited on and I thought about when I evaluated scenarios, when I planned ahead, when I really took the time to think about where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, and where my focus was going to be, those are the ones, while they may have taken months for them to really come to fruition, they were always more fruitful in the end. And so I'm not saying stop and just do nothing, but I want you to really think about the long-term impact when we're sometimes just in this rat race of our business and we feel like everything is important. And so we become reactive, right? So like I said to you guys, why is it urgent? If you feel like you're in a rush to do something, I advise you to ask yourself that question. Why am I rushing? Who am I rushing for? Like, what's going to happen if I take an extra day here? What's going to happen if I sit in this uncomfortable space where I'm like, I don't have an answer and maybe I'm not going to rush to get the answer right this second. I'm going to sit and see what happens and let time and space create its own momentum because I'm taking the time to think and plan. Okay. So that was number 1 most important value-driven activity for most of our clients. Number 2 is providing patient care. So this is something that only you can do, right? This is an activity that you, if you have an MD behind your name, or for those of you who are managers of your business, this is what your provider should be busy doing every day. Right? Thinking and planning and providing patient care, taking care of patients, doing the things that is of a level of expertise that they are only able to do. That is the zone of genius. Okay. And then number 3 is influential, scaled delivery or communication. So this is basically number 3 is anything that's going to magnify the impact of what you're doing. So if you're doing something, even if it's marketing, right? Like many of you asked me about wanting to invest in or to build leveraged delivery systems in your business. Basically, how do you create more money with less input? Okay. So I know Dr. C is an example because I can see you here. She started creating videos that she could use as not only marketing tool, but also training of her team and putting them into SOPs so that as she onboards new team members, there's instructional videos about every procedure that they offer. That is scaled delivery or communication, rather than having to go back and say that again and again, simply videotaping that, right? Building recurring retail revenue in your business, building membership programs where you have patients coming in to make recurring payments, to provide additional touch points for them and visits to the office and additional revenue for you. Okay. So these are scaled. This is where you need the thinking and planning to build these assets. This doesn't happen when you are rushing and you feel like a sense of urgency all of the time. Okay. But you have to be willing to clear your schedule to a point where I recommend 30% of your time is open so that you can use that time to fill it with asset building activities. So that means creating your systems, creating processes, creating recurring revenue. These are assets that will make you money essentially while you sleep. This is the only way to optimize yourself and your time without burning out. Okay. So I remember meeting with a physician a few years ago, and he said to me, we were talking about his business, and he said, some entrepreneurs have time and some have money, but I want both. And I'll never forget that conversation because it really opened my eyes to what's possible, right? If you're intentional about how you spend your time, everything else can get delegated. You can use people in your business to leverage your delivery, and you can create more time for yourself and more money in your life. But that has to come with focus and intention. So we have a private client right now. He only does facelifts. That's all he does. He refers out every single other procedure. He will not get into the weeds of trying to manage his own business. He says, you know what? I know that this is what I'm best at. Nobody else can do this. I can do this, right? And he hires all the best people around him to run the business behind him because that's what they do well. And he's doing what he does well. And with the last conversation I had with him, he said to me, Kaylee, even Kobe, right? Even Kobe Bryant couldn't do it alone. He would be nothing without his team. And so, just bringing it full circle, think of Kobe. He was a phenomenal athlete and just an incredible human and a role model. But he couldn't go out there and make 3-pointers without a team behind him. Like, he's not going to go up against the rest of the team. It really took everybody. But they could elevate him and he could focus on what he did well. And then he had a team of people who would support him and help him rise. And so that's what I hope for you guys. You guys can view your team as really an asset to not only delegate your service delivery, but to be there for you to handle the things that are out of that area of focus or the zone of genius, right? And so when you guys come to our calls with us, or if you have a list and you're like, okay, I'm working on these things and this and this and this and this, and then you're asking me, well, what else can I do? I want you to really think, have you fully committed and optimized the one thing that you're working on yet, or that top 3 list, those areas of focus, right? More marketing, as an example, isn't always better, but focused strategic marketing is better, right? Even if it's only through one channel, doing it right, staying focused on one thing, putting that effort where that 20% of activity is going to produce 80% of your results, okay? And then finally, tying it back to your boundaries. How others respond to the boundaries you set is completely out of your control. And when an employee tells you that I'm not making enough money to pay my bills, right? It's none of your business how they choose to manage their finances. Okay. So this is compensations come up quite a bit. And you're running a business and giving an employee an opportunity. And I'm not saying be unreasonable, but you can't make strategic business decisions because somebody has something going on in their personal life, right? The things that happen for them at home, that's none of your business. And we have to set boundaries, not just around our interactions with our team, but what we expect from our team, our patients, our family, all the people around us. I just think that it's so critically important. And I know that many of you are either, well, look, we all are this way. Like, I think the work that we do, right, especially for you providers, you have very intimate relationships with your patients. You're doing very transformative work, and you have very close relationship with your team. And this can be a major challenge in some ways, but you can't possibly please everyone. You have to set your focus and then communicate expectations and boundaries to everyone in your life, right? So many of you are either personally handling or hiring someone administrative to like put out fires. Like, how many of you have somebody whose job it is to just deal with administrative BS, right? Or you're dealing with that. But I'll tell you that BS is something that you shouldn't have to have in the first place. I think that when you get clear, you simplify, you focus, and you slow down, you can actually eliminate a lot of that BS that you're paying people to manage. And so many of you guys are busy hiring people to handle things in your business as a result of just too much complexity to begin with. And so starting with focus, starting with looking back at that Pareto principle and truly prioritizing, that's where it's going to start. Okay. So how do we prioritize? Because I know many of you are thinking like, okay, get this, but like there's so many things. How do I get clear and identify what those areas of focus should be for me? Right. So number one, I'm going to give you 5 strategies here. Okay. So you guys can write these down. Get clear on what you actually do every day. So spend a week making a list of activities of what you're doing every hour. Okay. So you can put it in an Excel sheet, or you can just simply type it on your phone or carry a little pad around you. But really get clear. I think you'll be surprised on how much time you spend doing things you don't realize you're doing, right? And how much time you are doing something that is either someone else's job or you're doing in tandem with someone else versus optimizing that time and the resources that you have within your business. Go through this exercise and start making a list. What did I do this morning from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m.? What did I do from 9 to 10? Saw a patient, went and put out this fire, handled this. You might see some things that come up for you that are a trend that should be addressed. You may surprise yourself, or you might be super proud of yourself. But first order of business to know where to go and how to prioritize is to get clear on what you're actually doing each hour. For you employees too, who are on here today, I recommend doing the same thing. Get clear on how you're spending your time and what areas within your role are impacting the business, are adding the most value for your business and your business owner. Okay. Number 2 is create your own CEO job description. So we create job descriptions for our employees, but what about us, right? As we're the CEO of the business, what should we be doing? What is your role and what should you be spending your time doing every day? So you're going to have a list of things you're doing, and then you're going to have your CEO job description and see how those match up to each other. Okay. Number 3, what 3 areas of focus would drive 80% of results? So I'm going to be asking you guys this question on our think tank next week. So I want you to really be thinking about this. What 3 areas of focus would drive 80% of results? I mean, I gave you guys an example and a hint, but how within your business would this be applicable? Okay. And then number 4, why is this important to you? The things that you're doing and you're focusing on, thinking about why it's important to you. This is such a critical question, you guys. Sometimes when I ask myself this, I realize like, oh, I'm really doing this to please somebody else. I'm really doing this because I don't want to let someone else down. I'm really doing this because I have some sort of level within me where I feel like I'm supposed to, or I have to do that, or that's the next thing that someone expects of me. And when you really get clear and think about why you're doing things, you may change the way that you approach your time. And it may be everything for you to be able to cut those things out and focus more on the things that really fill you up. And then number 5 is to have really powerful filters. So here's the thing, you guys at this level, for all of you here, it's not about not knowing what to do. It's honestly about knowing what not to do, right? It's a couple projects a year and that's it. It's focusing specifically on those core areas and that's all. Last week, I was out in Scottsdale with the Admires and we built their annual marketing plan and they're marketing 3 things the whole year. I guarantee you they're business will explode because of their focus and consistency and commitment to that. And we were strategic. What's going to drive the most profit for the business? What's going to yield a big return? What's going to bring patients in? What's a recurring revenue model that we can focus on? Okay. So it's having focus, it's having these filters, and it's focusing on a couple projects. And it's up to you as a leader to stand by that. It's up to you to protect that. It's up to you to show up as that person for your team who's clear about what your objectives are. Okay. And not just to run ragged and not let yourself be blowing in the wind, right? Look at professional athletes. They give 110% when they're out there on the field or they're out on the court, right? They're high performance athletes. They are driving. They are pushing. They're just gritty, but they aren't giving 110% all the damn time, right? They invest in recovery. They invest in rehabilitation and nourishment, right? They're getting massages. They're doing all the things, right? But this is vital to high achievement. So if you want to be a high performer in your business, you have to think about this, right? Think about those moments where you're like, I don't want to let that person down, or I'm afraid if I don't do it, it won't get done, or it won't get done right. What happens if it doesn't get done? What if you just let something that is outside of that core area of focus, you let it go, right? And feed yourself and give yourself the space and the time to think and plan and to do the things that you love to do. And so when you do this, you will eliminate over functioning, over delivering, striving, stressing, hurting, rushing, right? Hurrying. These can be poison for your business. And so I totally get it. And I can appreciate and I empathize for those of you that feel like we don't have a lot of time. We have to get this done, right? I get that, but you're not going to break the cycle of being in a rush or feeling reactive or having your business control you if you don't make a decision to pull back on some things. And that comes with focusing on the right things, okay? And here's the reality. There's plenty of opportunity to distract you out there. You have the world's richest companies with the most brightest minds, the most brilliant people that are out to truly splinter your attention so that they can go and sell your information to advertisers. This is a real thing, okay? So when you're faced with that kind of onslaught, you better be showing up with clear boundaries and filters about what's going to get your attention and what's not. What are you going to invest your time and your energy in? What are you going to allow around you? Okay, you have to stay focused. This comes down to you. So many of us are obsessed with the amount of screen time our kids get, or your employees fiddling around, shopping online, or whatever in your practice. I hear this all the time. But we have to set the example too. We need to show them what discipline looks like, what vision looks like. We need to show them an example of a woman or a man who is fiercely committed to her vision or his vision and has created this beautiful business and life based on that commitment. Not saying one thing and then all of a sudden showing up for your team and having a whole nother plan in place, right? How are they possibly supposed to stay focused if you're not focused? That is focus, right? And of course here, there's tons of tactical things we can talk about, but I really just wanted to take the time today to talk to you guys about the value behind really just rethinking your relationship with time and to ensure that the activities that you choose to spend your time on match the values that are most important to you and truly offer you the time and space and freedom to be the leader that you want to be and that you believe you can be for your team and your family and yourself at the end of the day.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Fierce Factor. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure you subscribe so you can automatically get new shows every week. I'd also love it if you left us a review. And come join the conversation online. If you're an aesthetic industry owner, operator, or leader, please join my free Facebook group, The Tribe of Fierce Aesthetic Leaders, a community of ambitious, purpose-driven professionals who collaborate and share best practices for growth in business and life. I'm honored you tuned in.